Star Trek, Primitive Passenger Season 3, Episode 7, Simple Lives. Nolan, there's something odd on long-range scanners, Elara said from her position on the bridge. A transport vessel, but its power signature is remarkably primitive. Pre-warp technology that someone's modified to achieve faster-than-light travel, sort of. Nolan moved to study the readings. That's quite a workaround. Those plasma conduits look ready to... They just blew, Elara confirmed as new data streamed in. 3 pursuit vessels closing fast. Raiders, by the look of their configurations. The transport limped across the view screen, venting plasma from multiple hull breaches. Its engines flickered erratically, each burst of power threatening to tear the ship apart. The raiders, sleek, predatory vessels, closed the gap with practiced precision. Their weapons and shields are completely depleted, Elara reported. Life signs aboard suggest 23 survivors. All female. Interestingly enough, all female. Nolan raised an eyebrow. Let's see who we're dealing with. Open a channel. A deep, commanding female voice responded immediately. This is Matriarch Selena of the Millerite Transport Endurance. We require immediate assistance. The voice carried authority despite their desperate situation. This is Nolan Mercer of the Havoc. We can help, but first, let's deal with your pursuit. Elara, launch tenders 3 through 7. Get those plasma leaks under control. The small maintenance vessels blinked into existence around the stricken transport, their repair beams already at work containing the plasma vents. Matriarch, Nolan continued, we'll have you secured shortly. Stand by for... Unknown vessel. A harsh voice cut across the channel. This is Captain Vrek of the Free Trade Alliance. That ship and its cargo are now our property. Withdraw or face the consequences. Nolan rolled his eyes. Free Trade Alliance. Really? That's what we're calling pirates these days? Their weapons are charged, Elara noted calmly, though I use the term weapons loosely. Their combined firepower couldn't dent the Havoc's hull if they fired for a week. Attention, raiders, Nolan broadcast. The Millerite vessel is under our protection. I suggest you reconsider your position. The lead raider responded by launching a spread of torpedoes. They detonated harmlessly against the Havoc's shields. Well, that was ambitious of them, Elara remarked dryly. Should I demonstrate what actual weapons look like? No need to show off. Nolan grinned. Just give them a love tap. A single energy pulse from the Havoc struck the lead raider's engines, leaving them dead in space. The other 2 vessels immediately broke off their attack, turning tail and jumping to warp. Some alliance, Nolan chuckled. Matriarch Selena, your ship is stabilized, preparing for transport into our hold. Transport? The matriarch's voice carried equal parts skepticism and concern. Our vessel is nearly 300 meters long. Surely you don't. The transport vanished from open space, reappearing safely within the Havoc's cavernous hold. Through the hold's monitoring system, Nolan watched as the Millerite crew emerged from their ship. Each woman stood well over 6 feet tall, with powerful builds that made them look like they could bench press a shuttle. If their women are this impressive, Nolan mused to Elara, their men must be absolute giants. Perhaps, Elara replied with a knowing smile, though nature often works in unexpected ways. Should we go welcome our guests? Nolan headed for the cargo hold with an unusual spring in his step. I feel underdressed. Maybe I should have worn platform boots. Don't worry, Elara assured him as they descended toward the hold. I'm sure they'll find you adorable. Adorable? Nolan sputtered. I'm not sure that's the impression I want to make on a ship full of Amazons. The lift doors opened, and they found themselves face to, well, chest with their new guests. Matriarch Selena towered over Nolan, her muscular arms crossed as she assessed him. You have our thanks, Captain Mercer, she said, her voice softer now but no less commanding, though I admit I've never encountered a ship quite like this one, or a crew quite like yours. Her gaze lingered on Ilara with obvious interest. "The havoc is unique," Nolan replied, trying not to feel dwarfed by the assemblage of towering women, "as is its crew. Now, shall we discuss getting you home?" The matriarch nodded, then turned to consult with her officers, all equally impressive specimens who seemed to communicate through subtle gestures and knowing looks. "Well," Nolan muttered to Ilara, "this should be interesting." "Indeed," Ilara agreed, "though I suspect you haven't seen interesting yet." "We'll have you home in a moment," Nolan announced to the gathered Millerite women. "If you'll just—" "A moment," Matriarch Selena interrupted. "Our sensors indicate we're still several weeks' journey from—" The Habit blinked. The women staggered collectively, their impressive height working against them as they tried to maintain balance. One particularly tall officer toppled into her companions, creating a domino effect of falling Amazons. "Our colony," Selena finished weakly, clinging to a handrail. "We're in orbit around your planet," Ilara informed them cheerfully. "Would you like to see?" The view screen activated, showing their homeworld below. The Millerite women crowded forward, their usual dignity forgotten in their astonishment. "That's impossible," one officer breathed. "We would just— but how—" "You can thank Ilara," Nolan replied with a wink. "Best pilot in the galaxy." Minutes later, they materialized on the planet's surface. Nolan surveyed the damage to the colony. Scorched buildings, hastily repaired walls, makeshift defensive positions. But what caught his attention was the sound of laughter and shouting. Across the settlement, dozens of small figures darted about, playing what appeared to be an elaborate game of tag, combined with hide-and-seek. They scrambled over debris, swung from tree branches, and generally caused cheerful chaos. "Ilara?" Nolan watched the scene with growing confusion. "Why are all their children boys?" Nolan, those are the Millerite men." Nolan's jaw dropped as he watched one of the children dodge past. The figure was clearly adult, but barely reached his shoulder, with a slight build and boyish features. A group of them had started a game of leapfrog nearby, completely ignoring the important arrival taking place. But, Nolan turned to Matriarch Selena. With you being so." "Yes." Selena's eyebrow arched dangerously. "Never mind," Nolan mumbled. A piercing whistle cut through the air. The playing men froze mid-frolic, then scattered like startled rabbits into various hiding places. "Don't mind them," Selena sighed. "They'll come out when they're hungry. Now, about these raiders, run." The Matriarch's council gathered in what appeared to be a meeting hall, really just a large circular room with roughly hewn wooden benches. Selena sat with her chief advisors, Kenna, a battle-scarred veteran with close-cropped gray hair; Mara, their lead agriculturalist whose massive arms spoke of years tending the soil; and Tenon, the dark-skinned beauty who'd been studying Nolan with some intensity since their arrival on the Havoc. Now that he understood their society better, her scrutiny made him distinctly uncomfortable. "We seek only to live simply," Selena explained, her voice carrying the weight of oft-repeated doctrine. "To work the land, to hunt, to create with our hands. Technology corrupts the soul, separates us from our true nature." "Yet you have spacecraft," Nolan observed carefully. Kenna spat on the dirt floor. "Necessary evil. The galaxy won't leave us be. Pirates, slavers, traitors who won't take no for answer." Her hand unconsciously touched the plasma burn scar on her neck. "We adapt or we die." "The irony isn't lost on us," Mara added softly. "Every raid forces us to advance further from our chosen path. We build weapons to defend against weapons. We modify ships to escape ships." She gestured toward the window where several men could be seen playing hide-and-seek in the crops. "Our men, they're not suited for this constant warfare. They're gentle souls, as they should be, as we all should be. Some came for our women," Tenon spoke for the first time, her voice hard. "Others came for our men, both equally cruel and with the same intentions." She met Nolan's eyes directly. "We only wish to be left alone. To live quietly, to raise our children, to be at peace." Selina nodded. Each year brings more threats, more unwanted attention. This sector is too busy, too crowded with those who would impose their will upon us. We build and fight and advance when all we want is to go back to simpler ways. A small group of men darted past the window, playing some sort of game with sticks. Their laughter carried into the hall, a stark contrast to the grim conversation. Perhaps, Ilara suggested carefully, what you need is somewhere truly isolated, somewhere others cannot easily reach. The women exchanged glances. Hope and skepticism warred in their expressions. Such a place exists, I asked, coolly. It's something we've talked about, Ilara began, sharing a glance with Nolan. When we first found it, Nolan said it would be perfect for people who needed sanctuary, a place to truly be left alone. Tenem leaned forward, her movement causing Nolan to instinctively lean back. And where is this sanctuary? She smiled at his reaction, clearly amused. First, Ilara redirected, how many people are we talking about? For some general planning parameters. 3,200,000, Mara answered promptly. Give or take 10,000. Our last census was interrupted by a Nausicaan raid. Nolan whistled. That's a lot. Running the back of his fingers along Tenem's leg. His eyes met hers. Too much, Tenem asked, somehow having moved her bench closer to Nolan's without anyone noticing. Her shoulder brushed his, making him acutely aware of the size difference between them. No, actually, Ilara said, calling up some calculations on a pad. The available space is more than adequate. We could establish multiple settlements, each with sufficient agricultural land. Basic dwellings would be simple to provide. But wait, Selina interrupted. What is this place you're talking about? Ilara looked at Nolan, who was trying casually to hide the fact that he and Tenem were having a different conversation. We should show them. Agreed, Nolan said quickly, standing up. We could take a small group. He quickly sat down. I volunteer, Tenem said immediately, looking around the room nonchalantly. For thorough evaluation purposes, of course. Of course, Mara echoed with a knowing smirk. Yeah, I should go too, to assess the agricultural potential. Perhaps we should all, Selina began, but was interrupted by a crash outside. Several Millerite men had apparently invented a new game involving rolling down hills in empty storage barrels. Someone should stay and manage things here, Kenna suggested diplomatically. I'll wrangle the men while you're gone. She feigned exasperation. All the women laughed. Fine, Selina sighed, watching as one barrel rolled past the window with a giggling occupant. But let's choose our team carefully. We need level heads for this evaluation. Oh, I intend to be very thorough in my evaluation, Tenem purred, looking down at Nolan. Nolan cleared his throat. Tazan Tramini. Well, tomorrow morning then? As they left the hall, Ilara whispered, I believe you've made quite an impression. If I break my spine or something in all this, I blame you. What'd I do? She slapped him playfully. Nolan put on his best outrage. Are you kidding? Sir, there's something odd on long-range scanners. Remember that? He laughed, mocking her voice. This is all on you. Oh, Ilara. If I die, I want you to know that this is the way I wanted it. This is the way I always wanted to go. Ilara and Nolan bouncing off each other and laughing heartily as they headed down the hall. Tanim watched with curiosity and just a little green fire. The havoc emerged from its blink, the massive structure of the ring world filling the view screen. Gasps echoed across the bridge as 80 Millerite women crowded forward, their usual composure forgotten. Before you say anything, Nolan raised his hand, cutting off a dozen half-formed questions. Just let us show you. The shimmer of the transport beam faded, leaving the delegation standing on the shores of a crystal-clear lake. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks seeming to curve impossibly upward. A fish broke the lake's surface, sparkling in the perpetual daylight before splashing back down. Birds called from nearby trees, their songs carrying across the pristine landscape. Mara dropped to her knees, running her fingers through the rich soil. "This earth," she whispered, crumbling it between her powerful hands. "No toxins, no artificial compounds. Just perfect." She put a double handful of soil to her face and gave it a long inhale. "Ladies, if I could have your attention for just a moment," Nolan called out, watching as the women paused reluctantly in their excited preparations. Their eyes turned toward him more from ingrained courtesy than natural deference. "In all my explorations of this region, I've never encountered any dangerous plants or animals. Though," he paused, "I would remind you that while so much of the food is incredible, if your system is not used to eating like this, well, then I wouldn't overdo it." This earned scattered laughter from the crowd, even a snort from Selena. "So have fun. Explore everything. Just take it easy. No injuries, no illnesses." He gestured toward the pristine landscape stretching before them. "It's all yours to discover." The women needed no further encouragement, resuming their preparations with renewed enthusiasm. Tenham lingered behind, giving Nolan an appraising look. "You're really used to being in charge, huh? Speaking to a group of 80 Millerite women like you're the bosses or something," she said playfully, with a little melody in her voice. The women spread out in waves, their initial stunned silence giving way to growing excitement. A group of agricultural specialists followed Mara's lead, fanning out to examine the native vegetation. Their excited calls echoed back and forth as they discovered one edible species after another. "These berries," one called out. "They're like blueberries, but sweeter. Look at these root vegetables. They're already as big as my arm." Near the lake's edge, the fisheries team had abandoned their formal survey plans. Two of them had stripped down to their undergarments and waded in, laughing like children as fish swam fearlessly around their legs. "The water's perfect," they shouted. "And these fish, they'd never seen humans before. They're not afraid at all." A hunting party was organizing their gear, their usual military precision softening as they took in their surroundings. "No need for perimeter security," their leader realized aloud, wonderment in her voice. "No need for guards or watches or—" She trailed off, overcome by the implications. "Look," someone shouted from a nearby ridge. "Herds of something in the valley. Like antelope, but different. They cook up really nice," Nolan yelled. Tenham stayed close to Nolan, her usual flirtation tempered by genuine awe. "How far does it extend?" she asked, gesturing toward the impossibly curving horizon. "Farther than you could explore in a lifetime," he replied. "The ring stretches for millions of kilometers. This section alone could support 10 times your population, with room to spare." Selena supervised as teams unloaded their survey equipment from the transport pallets. But even she couldn't maintain her stern demeanor as a flock of iridescent birds swooped overhead, their calls unlike anything they'd heard before. "No raiders," one of the older women said softly. "No slavers. No one to force us to advance beyond our wishes." Tears streaked down her weathered face. "The men would thrive here," Mara observed, returning from her initial soil survey. "They could play and explore safely, be true to their nature without risk." A cheer went up from the lakeside as someone pulled up a net full of fat, silvery fish. The success quickly devolved into a water fight, the participants seeming to shed years of tension and vigilance with each splash and laugh. "It's like the ancient tales," one of the scholars in the group mused. "The gardens of legend, before technology corrupted everything." She turned to Nolan and Alara. "Why would you share this with us?" Before they could answer, a commotion arose from another survey team. They'd found a hot spring-fed pool just over the next rise, steam rising invitingly from its surface. The discovery sparked another exodus as women grabbed their gear, all pretense of organized survey work temporarily forgotten. "I haven't seen them like this in ever," Tenham said, watching her people shed their hardened exterior. "We've been fighting for so long, just to exist, to be left alone." She turned to Nolan. "There has to be a catch. Something you want in return." Alara smiled. "Just neighbors who appreciate this place for what it is. There's so much space here, so much possibility. It would be a shame for it to remain empty. I want to show you something. Nolan grabbed Tenham's hand and pulled her in the opposite direction. Everyone else was going. They headed down a small trail, Tenham surprised by Nolan's forwardness. Another fishing net came up full, accompanied by more cheers. Someone had found fruit trees near the hot springs. The hunting party reported back about caves that could shelter entire communities. Each discovery was met with growing excitement as the Millerite women allowed themselves, perhaps for the first time in generations, to hope. "Right," Selena finally announced, though her authoritative tone was somewhat undermined by her bare feet dangling in the lake. "Let's get organized. We need proper surveys of water sources, arable land, natural shelters." She paused as another group of birds wheeled overhead, though perhaps we could take our time about it. The day stretched on, the survey teams gradually finding their balance between professional assessment and pure joy of discovery. This wasn't just another potential colony site. This was something more. This was possibility. This was freedom. As the sun held its position in the perpetual afternoon sky, Selena and Alara exchanged knowing looks. The ring world had dramatically exceeded the Millerites' hopes. This wasn't just about finding them a new home anymore. This was about watching a people rediscover who they could be when fear no longer ruled their lives. "I found this the last time I was here. I never got a chance to explore." Nolan led Tenham into a cave opening, the rough stone mouth gaping like an ancient beast's maw. "I can't see anything." Tenham reacted as they stepped inside, clutching Nolan's hand, the darkness swallowing them whole. The temperature dropped noticeably, and the air carried the mineral scent of wet stone as they cautiously moved forward in the dark. "It's pitch black." "It is, actually, but stay with me just a little further." Their footsteps echoed softly against the narrow walls as they ventured deeper into the tunnel. The rough stone beneath their feet gradually smoothed, worn by countless years of water flow. A faint blue light began to pierce the darkness ahead, its ethereal glow barely visible at first, then growing stronger with each step. "Can you see it now?" The tunnel opened into a vast chamber, where crystalline water cast dancing reflections across the curved walls. "What is this place?" The otherworldly blue glow played across Tanim's face, her eyes alight with wonder. "It's water," she said, as if she were seeing it for the first time. She tilted her head back, following the source of the shimmering light that poured down from above, painting the chamber in supernatural hues. "There are anomalies here and there, various places around the ring." He gestured up toward where the azure light filtered through what appeared to be a massive sheet of transparent stone. "It looks like something got hot and turned part of the lake bottom into glass. Maybe before there even was a lake. Why this tunnel is here, I have no idea." Nolan kissed Tanim. She took it as a challenge and hungrily kissed him back. In an instant, passion poured like fire as they began their exploration in the dimming light. The light. Oh, shit. Nolan started pulling himself away from Tanim. "The light. We gotta go." Tanim, having none of this foolishness, held Nolan firm. "I didn't think you'd get scared like our men." She pressed him against the wall. "I've had plenty practice keeping a scared man from getting away." "No, you digbat." Nolan pointed past her shoulder. "The light. Night happens fast on the ring. It'll be pitch black in about 5 minutes. We will not find our way out of here in the dark, and I forgot to warn the group. Will we die if we stay right here all by ourselves all night long?" She slid her fingers up and down on the back on Nolan's neck. "I have water," she said, hefting a big canteen from her hip. "I'm sure they'll be fine." Nolan gave in to his passion as they sank down the wall, and complete darkness enveloped them. Waning sun cast hard noonday shadows as Nolan and Tanim emerged from the cave entrance, playfully shoving each other and laughing. Her powerful arms wrapped around him from behind. Nolan tipped forward, pulling Tanim off the ground. She responded, as he tipped back, by lifting him off his feet with ease. "Put me down, you Amazon," he chuckled. "We have work to do." Below them, the valley had transformed over the past months. Prefabricated shelters dotted the landscape in a carefully planned pattern, each homestead separated by generous plots of land. Streams had been diverted into irrigation channels, and the first crops were already sprouting in neat rows. "Nolan," Alara's voice came through his comm badge. "The first wave of 10,000 arrives in 2 hours. Selena reports they're having some organizational challenges." Through the badge, they could hear the chaos in the background, shouts of, "No, don't let them near the transport containers. And someone catch those 3 before they start another barrel-rolling competition." Tanim snorted. "I should go help. The men get extra excitable during big changes." She gave Nolan one last squeeze before heading down the path. In the Havoc's command center, Alara and Selena stood before a massive holographic display of the ring section. Colored indicators showed planned settlement zones spreading across thousands of square kilometers. 3 million people, plus livestock and essential supplies, Alara mused, running calculations. Even with the Havoc's capacity, we're looking at least 30 jumps. The power requirements will be substantial. "And that's assuming we can keep the men organized long enough to load them," Selena added dryly. On a nearby screen, they could see a group of Millerite men who had turned a cargo container into an impromptu musical instrument, dancing and singing as the exasperated women tried to restore order. "We'll need 3 staging areas," Alara continued, highlighting points on the map. "Here, here, and here. That way we can process new arrivals while earlier groups get settled." A commotion from another screen drew their attention. Several men had discovered the ring's lower gravity and were attempting to teach themselves to fly, leaping from increasingly higher perches while their horrified partners scrambled to catch them. "Perhaps," Selena suggested with forced calm, "we should prioritize moving the men first, before they accidentally discover something worse than barrel rolling." "Agreed," Alara nodded, "though I suspect this is just the beginning of their adventures here." The scope of the project was staggering, but watching the first settlements take shape, seeing the joy on the faces of people who had lived their entire lives under siege, it made every calculation, every jump, every chaotic moment worth it. And somewhere in the distance, the sound of men singing and women shouting drifted up from the valley, a preview of the wonderful chaos to come. Late afternoon on the ring world, its eternal sun holding position at high noon as the ring eased its way around the platforms above. Nolan and Alara stood with the Matriarch's Council atop a grassy hill, watching their civilization take root below. Smoke rose from cooking fires outside newly established homes. Children played in the fields while women tended crops and livestock. The sound of hammers and saws echoed across the valley as more permanent structures began to rise. 3 weeks, Mara said proudly, turning to face the fire. "And already the first crops are sprouting. The soil here, it's beyond anything we could have hoped for." A commotion drew their attention to a distant ridge where a group of men had fashioned crude hang gliders from spare building materials. Their delighted whoops carried on the breeze as they launched themselves into the air. "That's the 4th dangerous hobby they've invented this week," Kenna growled. "Perhaps we should consider some kind of containment system. For their own protection, of course. Fences, at minimum," another council member agreed. "Or designated play areas." "Oh," Nolan's voice was firm but gentle. "We brought you here so you could all live as you please. That goes for them, too." "But they'll hurt themselves," Selena protested, watching as another glider wobbled precariously. "Maybe," Nolan conceded. "Probably. But they'll learn. This is their chance to be who they are, just as it's yours." Tanim, who had been unusually quiet, spoke up. "He's right. We left our old world to escape those who would cage us. We can't turn around and do the same to our men." Below, the gliders had landed safely, and their pilots were already planning improvements to their design. Their enthusiasm was infectious, their joy unbridled. "Besides," Hilara added with a smile, "there's something beautiful about their spirit, isn't there? their ability to find wonder and play in everything. The council members exchanged glances, centuries of protective instincts warring with the truth of these words. "We'll have to establish some basic safety guidelines," Mara finally said. "But perhaps we can learn to let them fly." As if to punctuate her words, a group of men raced past, chasing some new adventure. Their laughter echoed across the valley, free and unfettered, a sound that spoke of new beginnings and endless possibilities. Nolan felt Tanem's hand slip into his as they watched the sun's light paint the landscape in amber hues. All around them, a society was being reborn, finding its way back to simpler times while forging something entirely new. The sunlight slowly disappeared across the landscape before their eyes, and night was here. "Well," he said softly, "I'd say this counts as a successful relocation, even though I spent most of it under the lake and Ilara did all the work." "Silly," Tanem corrected. "It was successful because Ilara did all the work, and you were under the lake being ridden like a Tarkanian targ." "What?" Nolan indignant. I helped a lot." "Yeah, you did, big man," she teased. "He worked so hard." Nodding, pulling on his collar, Nolan picked her up, his left forearm under her backside. He smacked it hard with his right hand. "Yeah," he let out. "Wait, what were we talking about? Hanging out under the lake?" She sang back, "Good plan." He carried her down the hill as she pushed away tree branches and tried not to get stuck. Epilogue. Nolan sprawled across the command chair, tipped so far back he was nearly horizontal. His eyes were closed, a satisfied exhaustion evident in every line of his body. "So, Mr. Mercer, it's been a while." Ilara's voice carried its familiar warmth. A lazy smile spread across his face, eyes still closed. "Ilara, 3 months on the ring, and no one could ever find you. Not that we didn't know exactly where you were." She paused for effect. "Finally found a woman who was your carnal and physical equal. Is there anything left?" Nope." Nolan started laughing, even though it hurt to do so. Ilara joined in. "That girl had 50 pounds of muscle on you." "I can't believe you could keep up." "Not anymore. She lost 20 pounds down there." He did his best to make muscles with his arms, and I put on 10. He gasped and collapsed. "God, I'm so tired," he wept in a mocking tone. Their laughter trailed off into the night of space. Well, I tried to break him girls." Tanem threw her exhausted body across the bed in the communal area. Her cheek squashed as her face mashed into the hand-stuffed mattress. "I swear to God, ladies," she mumbled. I gave it everything I had." Her eyes closed. "What was it like?" Mara pressed. "He was big. Was he big, too? Did he fight? Did he fight you? Did you have to chase him?" Kenna hammered the questions in succession, her interest a bit over-exuberant. A loud, long snore was all that drifted from Tanem, still face down and fully clothed across the bed. Selena stepped in, removing Tanem's shoes, rolling onto her side and pushing a pillow under her head.